So welcome everybody to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over a quick topic test with a collection of GCSE exam style questions on area and perimeter at foundation level. Now a copy of the questions for you to have an attempt at before watching through this video is available for you to download by clicking on the link in the description, which I strongly recommend you do to see how much understanding you have on this topic. Now before we get started, it's worth mentioning that there is no indication about whether these questions are non-calculator or calculator specific, as perimeter and area can appear on both the calculator and the non-calculator paper. So what we'll do is we'll just plan for the worst case scenario and just assume that all the questions are non-calculator. So let's get started on question 1. So question 1 says the diagram shows an equilateral triangle and a square. Each side of the triangle is 14 centimeters. The perimeter of the triangle is equal to the perimeter of the square. Work out the length of the side of the square. So let's first of all work with the information that we know. So here it tells us that the perimeter of the triangle is equal to the perimeter of the square. So let's first of all work out what the perimeter of the triangle is going to be. Now, as it's an equilateral triangle, that means that all the sides are going to be 14. So if this base is 14, then the other two sides are going to be 14. So working out the perimeter, that's going to be 14 plus 14 plus 14, which gives me an answer of 1242 centimeters. So from this, what we then know is that the perimeter of the square is also going to be 42 centimeters. So if I just call this one of the sides x, because we don't know what they are, so to work out x, well, the perimeter of the square that we've got is going to be 4x, and that's going to be equal to 42. So then if I divide 42 by 4, I get 21 divided by 2, and half of 21 is 10.5. So the answer then is going to be 10.5 centimeters. And I could just write that there. Then moving on to question 2, it says this shape is made from rectangles. Work out the area of the shape. Now this is a compound shape where we've got two rectangles joined together. Now how we work out the area of this shape in all its entirety is to split this up into two rectangles. Now as you can see, I can probably split this rectangle up into two. So I can either have it as this here and this one here, or what I could do is split the shape this way, in which this is going to be C and all of this is going to be D. Now it doesn't really matter which one you go for. Well, let's go through both solutions and you should find that they're going to be the same. So if I split the compound shape into these two rectangles, then area of A is going to be 6 times 12, which is 72 centimeters squared. And the area of B, well, for this, I need to work out what some of the missing lengths are. So I need to work out what this length here is. Well, that length there is going to be 11, take away 6, which is 5 centimeters. So then to work out the area of rectangle B, that's going to be 5 times 8, which is 40. And then to work out the total area, just simply add those two lengths to get these two areas together, and I get 112 centimeter squared. Now if I went for the second option, so let's just get rid of the labeling for this. And let's say I split the rectangle this way. So let's just call this A and B. So here the area of A is going to be 11 times 8, which is 88 centimeters squared. And the area of B, well, if all of this length here is 12, and this length here is 8. This must be the missing sum of 8 and what gives you 12? Well, that's going to be 4. So it's going to be 4 times 6, which is 24. And again, if I simply add those two areas together, I get the same answer. So it doesn't really matter how you split it, but I certainly would show you working out either on the diagram or when you're working out. And it's also helpful to label each of the individual shapes for you to work out the total area. Moving on to question 3, it says this diagram shows a rectangular mirror inside a rectangular frame. The frame is the same width all the way round, and it says work out H, the overall height of the frame. Now for this, what we've got to recognize is that this length here is the same as this length here because it tells us that the frame is the same width all the way round. Now, it's difficult for me to work out what this length here is going to be because I don't know what h is. So what I need to do instead is work out what this length here is. Now, if I just call that x, then this is going to be x. So what I know is that x plus 20 plus x equals 32 centimeters. And what this x is basically the width of the frame. So here we've got 2x plus 20 equals 32. So 2x equals 12. And so x equals 6. Now you might have found that yourself without having to turn it into an equation, but that's absolutely fine. As long as you wrote down 6, that's going to be great to at least get one of those marks. So if this is going to be 6, then that means that this length here is also going to be 6, and this length here is also going to be 6. So to work out h, well, that's going to be, if I just choose a different color, well, that's going to be 6 plus 24 plus another 6, and that gives me h equals, and it's going to be 36 centimeters. Again, it's not area, so it's going to be in centimeters. The next question then says work out the shaded area. Now, to work out any shaded area, it's always the big shape, so the big rectangle in this case, subtracted by the small rectangle. Now, to work out the big rectangle, now if we go back to that, well, I can replace h with 36 centimeters. So the big rectangle is going to be 32 times 36. So that's going to be 32 multiplied by 36. So if you do a bit of long multiplication, either using the grid method, column method, any method you want, you should end up with an answer of 1152. Then to work out the small rectangle, well, that's going to be 20 times 24. And again, a bit of long multiplication, you find out the answer is going to be 480. So then taking away those two numbers away from each other, so 1152 minus 480. And again, doing your subtraction however way you see fit, you should have a final answer of 672. So moving on to question 4, it says the area of the trapezium is 4 times the area of the parallelogram. Work out the value of x. So the first thing we need to do here is work out what the area of the trapezium is going to be. Now, if you remember that the area of the formula for the area of a trapezium is a plus b multiplied by h divided by 2. Where a and b are the two parallel sides and h is the height. Now, obviously, you could also use a half h multiplied by a plus b. That's entirely up to you, but I tend to prefer going for this formula here. So here, substituting numbers in, we get 5 plus 11 multiplied by 4, all divided by 2. Now, 5 plus 11 is 16. Times by 4 divided by 2, and if we then work that out, I can cancel the 4 and the 2 down, so that becomes 16 times 2, which is 32 centimeters squared. Now, the information tells us that the area of the trapezium is 4 times the area of the parallelogram. So the area of the parallelogram is going to be 32 divided by 4, which is 8 centimeters squared. Now, to work out the area of a parallelogram, the formula is basically the base times the height, or the perpendicular height. So that's going to be 3.2 multiplied by x equals 8. So from this, what I then need to do is do x equals 8 divided by 3.2, which is the same as 80 divided by 32, and I can divide both numbers by 8, and that's going to give me 4. So 10 divided by 4 is 5 over 2, so x equals 2.5 centimeters. Obviously, it was on a calculator. I could just type into my calculator and I'd get the answer. Moving on to question 5, it says that circle the number of vertices of a triangular prism. Now, the vertices is basically the corners. So if I just quickly draw a triangular prism, That's a bit transparent. All I've got to do is just count the corners. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the correct answer is 6. Next question then says circle the number of edges of a square base pyramid. So if I just draw a square base pyramid, very poor one, and basically what I'm doing is I'm counting how many lines I've drawn. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so the correct answer is 8. Question 6 then, it says, and the final question says that a framework is in the form of a cuboid, is made from wire. Work out the total length of wire used. So for this, we've got this length here, which is 3. Now, how many of those have we got? Well, we've got 4 of those. So here we've got 3 times 4, which is 12. Then looking at the other side, so let's look at this one here. So how many of those can I see? Well, again, I've got 4 of those. So I've got 2.5 times 4. So it's 2.5 times 2 times 2, which is 10. And then finally, looking at these little height ones, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of those. So we've got 1.5 times 4, which is 1.5 times 2 is 3, times another 2 is 6. So then if I then add those 3 numbers together, I get a total answer of 28 centimeters. And there we are done.